So, very warm welcome to all of you joining us online for this satsang. My name is Gaurav, and it's my great joy to be sharing this evening with everyone. And I want to start by reading this passage from the Bhagavad Gita. This is from the Essence of the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriyananda ji, based on the commentaries of Paramahansa Yogananda. So this is from the chapter, The True Yoga. And the verse goes, "Let man uplift himself by his own effort, and let him not debase himself. Indeed, one's self is his own greatest friend, or if he chooses, his own greatest enemy. Useless is the human tendency to blame others for one's own misfortunes. Indeed, there are no misfortunes. Conditions are always neutral." Yogananda said, "They only appear good or bad, joyful or sad, fortunate or unfortunate, owing to the positive or negative attitudes and expectations of the mind. The yogi must learn to gaze even-mindedly upon whatever happens to him. When the ego chooses, however, to refer back again and again to itself, everything that can possibly affect it, it debases itself by becoming involved in downward and outward flowing energy through the chakras to the senses, then through the senses to the surrounding world. When others treat you unkindly, unfairly, or even cruelly, make it a definite point never to react with emotion, never strike back, never complain, never resist out of ego consciousness, either defensively or aggressively. Sometimes a wrong must be countered with a right. But even when duty calls you to such action, try always, as Krishna counseled Arjuna, to conduct yourself in such a way as to ensure that your own attitude is ever impersonal." And this is a beautiful passage and counsel that Krishna is giving us in this passage. And, one that is very practical, very, very relevant for all of us, who live in this world. This world, as we know, is full of people. And it is our lot, wherever we might be in this world, to be with people, to work with people, to deal with people, to fight with people, maybe sometimes, as the case may be, whether it's in our families or it's at work. And it can be a challenge sometimes, to in this world where there is so many different kinds of people, so many expressions, so many different varieties, so to speak, that it can be it can get to us sometimes, as the expression is, it can push our buttons, as we often say. But Yogananda ji says that everything that happens to us is neutral. And really, that is a very, very deep teaching. Sometimes we give this example that if you're on a bus and, you have a cup of coffee in your hand and, perhaps you're going for an interview, your first job, you're wearing a nice clean shirt and you're enjoying that hot cup of coffee, and someone comes from behind and, pushes you, very forcefully, you drop the coffee on your shirt. And, it's your first day of interview, it ruins the shirt, but it's like, you feel so mad, you're boiling with anger. And the person, you see him going ahead and maybe you shout to him, you even, call out, you curse him that, look where you're going, can't you see? And, a moment later, you see that person turn and you see that they are blind. that they cannot see, that in fact they're having a hard time keeping their balance because the bus is moving, and it is because of that that they perhaps pushed you. And what happens in that instant? Suddenly, does not your reaction change completely? All that anger, all that frustration, everything goes away just in one moment. And remember this often, when you are confronted, like Swamiji was saying, with someone being unkind or someone being unfair or critical, that our reactions can always be in our control. That situation was the very same. The shirt was still ruined, the coffee was still on it, you still had to go for your interview, but you chose in one moment to feel just very angry, and in the very next moment it was you yourself who chose to take back that reaction, and in fact maybe turn it into compassion. Maybe you were you were asking forgiveness from that person for having cursed them. And so this is a key to our happiness. And like Yogananda ji said, conditions are always neutral. They appear positive or negative only because of the positive or negative reactions of the heart. But I want to take it one step further today, which is when he says that when others treat you unkindly, because people do, in this world, I think we rub shoulders with enough people, we come across all sorts of people. When they treat you unfairly or even cruelly, make it a definite point never to react with emotion. Now, there can be many reasons why we can say, okay, it's not good to react with emotion. It's not good to be angry. What will others think of us? And, all of those things, but those are all lesser reasons. For a yogi, for a truth seeker, for someone who is intent on the final goal of liberation, self-realization, there is only one reason for not doing all of these things, not reacting with emotion when someone is unkind. Because when we do, when we react to someone in that way, above everything else, it does one thing for you and me, which is the most harmful for us spiritually. And that one thing is that when we react, it affirms that we are still who we think we are. I am still Gaurav, and how dare Pradnya shout at me? How dare she, scold me? How dare, Ritu say that unkind word to me, you see? And in that reactive process, the problem is it reinforces the thought that I, as a person, as a personality, Gaurav, Ritu, Ashna, Uday, people I'm seeing on screen, I am real. I am this real person. I am important. I have a reality. And how dare someone else threaten that reality? This being that I am. And why I'm mentioning that is, because as perhaps, we know, the purpose of the whole of the spiritual path is only one, and that is to dissolve, to overcome, to forget this narrow sense of ego, that my name is Gaurav, I am young, I am Indian, I am so and so, all these self-definitions which we accumulate, which we give ourselves, and this separation that exists between us and the divine. When we often as devotees pray, we have a guru or we pray to God, maybe in the form of the Divine Mother or whoever it might be. Often I think as maybe we often express this yearning that, we surrender ourselves to you, eliminate this veil between you, thou and I, make us one with you. All of these things through which we are trying, like we said, to forget this source of all troubles, this small person, this small personality, and saying, merge me, help me merge myself, my little self in your vast ocean. Let there only be you. Let there only be your consciousness within myself. And that is really, you can say almost it's like nailing the solution, which is we are trying through all our efforts, through meditation, through attunement, through serving others. There is only one goal, which is that we want to forget this I, me, mine, this little self, which always, like Swami says, it keeps referring back again and again itself. When the ego chooses to do that, he says it debases itself, which is to say, we demean ourselves when we keep referring ourselves back to this little ego, because we are not the ego. And that is the delusion we have to get out of. But, it is not easy to do that, as we know, and that is why it takes time, it takes practice. But there is something, that Yogananda ji recommended, which I have been practicing of late in my own life. And I want to share that kind of as a suggestion, kind of as an experiment, that maybe, any of you who feel to can also do it. And, this is this sense that more and more, just an inward feeling that I am not the doer, which we often say, God is the doer, but not just saying that, but trying to practice that. Yogananda ji once, to a disciple, to his advanced disciple, he said, don't just pray to God. He said, pray in God. And what does that mean? That can be a little confusing. Pray in God. I mean, we think of God always as, God is a being, God is outside. What does it mean to pray in God? But for the yogi, we know what it means. All of us do. That really the thought that God is not going to one fine day, come out of the clouds and become, so to speak, like a spirit, come into us and become one with us. It doesn't work like that. All the great saints say the God is within us right now. One of Yogananda ji's chants in Bengali, when it is translated, the words are, in the heart where thou art, forever reside. In the heart where thou art, forever reside. That devotee will remain oblivious to all sorrow and suffering. And that is the highest truth, that even though we pray to God, God is always within us. And really think about this for a moment. Who is speaking right now? Have I, does Gaurav know how to produce the voice? When I move my hand like this, do I have any idea how this hand is moving? Not at all. When I make expressions from my face, do I know inside what's happening? What muscles do I tell them do this and do that? Not at all. Who is this? Who is the one who digests the food? There is an intelligence within us. Who is, when I think, when the thoughts come to us, who is it who is thinking? Where is those thoughts coming from? From where are they coming? And when we love, as all of us do, think about it. If God had not implanted a little bit of his love in our hearts, would we know what love is? There is no love outside of God. And when we begin to really deeply ponder about these things, when you introspect, take a moment of silence or many during the day and think about these things. Who is this? I mean, when you look at yourself in the mirror, think, who is this? This is not my body. I did not create it. This, and it's just it takes you really to that realization that Yogananda ji said, that God is always the doer. It is just our silly little thought that we think, I am the doer. We are just not the doer, And the other reason, if some of you know this practice of Hong Sau, which we have an ancient mantra, the Hong Sau technique, Hongsa, when we practice, perhaps we often do it. What does it mean literally? I am he. It's a Sanskrit mantra. I am he. We repeat that, not that phrase, but we repeat the mantra, inwardly trying to, imbibe that meaning, I am he. And really, that is another reason that, when in life, our lives have to be a reflection of what we practice. When someone is unkind to us and, we react with, let's say, unkindness, with anger, we are doing the exact opposite of Hangsa. We are saying, I am this person. I am unkind. I am jealous. I am angry. And how counterproductive that we spend morning and evening trying to live in I am he. And then when these situations come, it's the complete opposite. And so, bit by bit, if we can feel and try this, at certain times before you meditate, when you're calm, just sit for a moment calmly with your eyes closed and just feel that it is the Guru. You have disappeared. You're no longer in the picture. You don't exist. And it is the Guru who is within you, embodied now. It is the body of the Guru. It is the body of Divine Mother. And when then you open your eyes, feel as if you have put on different pair of glasses. And now it is the Guru watching the world through these eyes. It is the Guru seeing, different people. And I've been having fun with this experiment. Then when you see people and, someone says something, let's say mean. So even if out of habit, my first reaction is to say something, because I've been practicing this, immediately the thought comes, but of course I am not there, And so the next thought comes that if someone says something unkind to a saint, to a master, what do? Well, they never react. They absorb everything into themselves. And so small, in small steps, you get that power. And then you say, there is no need to react because there is no I, there is no separate existence. There is no ego. Then when thoughts of worry come, let's say thoughts of fear come, or you feel anxious, with practice, then you think, what is there to worry about? What is there to fear? I am he. I am the infinite child. I have everything that I need. When, let's say, if you get worried about money, how am I going to pay the bills? You remember, I am the source of all abundance. How can there be lack? I can only give. And it takes practice. This sounds very good, but I really encourage everyone that if you can begin to practice, you start living in so much joy and your whole perspective shifts. And it's very beautiful. And in meditation also, Swami Kriyananda, he said that you and I, when we practice meditation, it is God's energy that is flowing in us already. That energy we talk about. And it is God's breath that we are watching. And the only decision that is in our hands is how do we want to, we are already, just the fact, like I was saying, that this body exists is a sign of grace, isn't it? We have no idea how the body works, but it works and it works wonderfully. This is a sign of grace already, that God's grace is flowing in us, through us. Our choice is simply to recognize it, to live it, to affirm it even more. And, finally, when we live more and more in this way, you begin to see, like I said, it's almost like wearing a new pair of glasses. And then, when you look at the world, then it's like the Guru and you, the distance begins to disappear. Which is really our goal. We want to narrow that difference. In the beginning of a spiritual path, we call out with devotion. And of course, devotion continues to the end of our lives. But, Yogananda ji said that in devotion, you keep the Guru, you keep the divine at some distance so that you can worship thou and I, which is very, very sweet. But, in love is the next step. He says that when your devotion evolves to love, then you don't even want that little bit of distance. of worshiping. And that is so sweet. You just want to merge. You say, I just want to merge in you. And so if we want to reach that stage, then this practice, especially of feeling that the Guru is not far, he is within me. God is not far, he is within me. And in meditation, sometimes that thought comes, when will I find God? And that is the height of delusion, because that thought comes from the thought that I am separate. And so again, feeling he is within me. I am feeling him right now. And so try, however, whatever way works for you personally, on your own journey, but try to live in that consciousness, pray in God, like Yogananda ji said, feel that God resides in my heart. There is nothing I have to seek out. My infinite Father, my divine mother and I are one. You can repeat that. My divine mother and I are one. My divine mother and I are one, because that is the highest truth. And so it takes a conscious effort. It's almost like an act of will to say, I throw out this thought that I am separate from you. I choose not to live in that. I choose to live in the consciousness that my master is in me, that my divine beloved is in me, and he or she is the one doing, acting, thinking, loving, blessing, praising, eating, everything, working, serving, everything through me. I am not separate from the divine. So many blessings to all of you. And I hope, especially, in this time of Durga Puja, I happen to be in Calcutta right now, which is, the birthplace of our Guru, Paramahansa Yogananda, and many other great saints in our lineage, others. So many, many blessings to all of you from here, but especially at this auspicious time of Navratri, of Durga Puja. And let's try to, if we can, especially tune into the presence of Divine Mother, around us, but within us, because she always lives within us. And we just have to remember that. So let's, during these, days, try to remember that, try to recall that presence in our mind, in our heart, as often as we can.